What if I told you that the very thing most people think is impossible, losing fat and building muscle at the same time, is not only possible, it's the key to staying biologically young. Most people spend decades cycling between diets that shrink their waist, but also weaken their body. The truth is, you can reverse that because the human body doesn't just burn or store, it adapts. And once you understand how to turn that switch on through protein, movement, sleep, and a few key molecules, you can reshape your body and your metabolism, even in your 60s, 70s, or 80s. Let me explain why this matters so much, especially now. For years, we've been told that weight loss is the ultimate goal. Step on the scale, watch the number drop, celebrate. But here's the problem. When you lose weight through traditional dieting alone, you're not just losing fat. You're often losing something far more precious, your muscle. And muscle isn't just about strength or appearance. It's your metabolic engine. It's what keeps your blood sugar stable, your bones protected, your balance steady, and your independence intact as you age. Losing muscle while chasing a lower number on the scale is like tearing pages out of a book to make it lighter. Sure, it weighs less, but you've lost the story. That's why I want to talk about something different today, something called body recomposition. It's not about getting smaller. It's about getting stronger, leaner, and more resilient at the same time. And the science is clear. It's entirely possible, even if you're starting later in life. In fact, some of the most dramatic improvements I've seen in research and in real people happen in folks over 65 because they have the most to gain. You're not too old, you're not too late, you just need the right approach. So, if losing fat and gaining strength aren't opposites, what's the first step to achieving both? It starts with something you eat every single day, but probably not enough of. I'm talking about protein. Now, I know you've heard about protein before. Maybe you think of it as something for bodybuilders or athletes. But let me reframe this for you. Protein is the master regulator of your muscle and your metabolism. It's not optional, it's foundational. And when it comes to body recomposition, building muscle while shedding fat, protein is the single most important lever you can pull. Here's what the research shows. The current dietary recommendation for protein sits at less than 1 g per kilogram of body weight. But studies where people double that amount, taking in closer to 1.5 to 2 g per kilogram, reveals something remarkable. When combined with resistance training, those individuals lose significantly more body fat and preserve their muscle mass even when they're eating fewer calories overall. Think about that. Same calorie deficit, same exercise, but just by increasing protein, the body shifts what it burns. It protects the muscle and targets the fat. And here's the kicker. People who stuck to the standard low protein recommendation while cutting calories, they lost nearly half their weight from muscle, not fat muscle. That's a metabolic disaster. 'Cause every pound of muscle you lose slows your metabolism, makes everyday tasks harder, and increases your risk of falls, fractures, and frailty. But when you eat enough protein, you flip the script. You lose fat. You keep or even build muscle. And your body starts working for you instead of against you. Now, why does protein do this? It's not magic. Protein has a high thermic effect, meaning your body has to work harder to digest it, burning more calories in the process. It also keeps you full longer, so you're less likely to overeat. And most importantly, protein provides the amino acids your muscles need to repair and grow, especially after exercise. Without enough protein, your muscles simply can't rebuild themselves. It's like trying to repair a house without lumber. You can hammer all you want. Nothing's getting fixed. So, how much do you actually need? A good target for most people, especially if you're over 65 and trying to lose fat while building or maintaining muscle, is somewhere between 1 and 12 to 2 g of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. If you weigh around 70 kilo, that's about 154 lobi. You're looking at roughly 100 to 140 grams of protein daily. Spread that across 3 or 4 meals, and you're giving your body a steady supply of what it needs to thrive. But nutrition is only half the picture. What you add to your body matters too. Let's talk about supplements. Now, I'm not someone who believes in magic pills. Most supplements are either overhyped or under-researched. But there are a handful, just a few, that have real evidence-based benefits for muscle metabolism and longevity. And if you're serious about body recomposition, these are worth paying attention to. The first is creatine. You've probably heard of it in the context of younger athletes, but creatine is one of the most studied and effective supplements we have, and it works beautifully for older adults. Creatine helps your muscles produce energy during short bursts of activity, like lifting weights or standing up from a chair. It also supports muscle growth and may even have cognitive benefits. Studies show that taking around 3 to 5 g of creatine daily can improve strength, increase lean muscle mass, and enhance recovery. And no, it's not going to make you bulky. It's simply going to help your muscles work better. Next, omega-3 fatty acids. These are the healthy fats found in fish oil, and they do far more than support your heart. Emerging research suggests omega-3 seconds can improve insulin sensitivity, which helps your body manage blood sugar and burn fat more efficiently. And they may even enhance muscle protein synthesis, especially in older adults. There's also evidence that omega-3 seconds reduce systemic inflammation, which is critical because chronic inflammation interferes with muscle repair and fat loss. Aim for around 1 to 2 g of combined EPA and DHA daily, either from fatty fish or a quality supplement. Then, there's vitamin D. This isn't just for bone health. Vitamin D receptors are found in your muscle tissue, and low levels are linked to weakness, poor muscle function, and even increased fat storage. Here's something fascinating. If you're carrying extra body fat, your fat cells can actually trap vitamin D, making you functionally deficient, even if you're getting some sun or taking a supplement. So, if you're overweight and trying to lose fat, you might need higher doses, sometimes in the range of 2,000 to 5,000 IUs daily, to get your blood levels where they need to be. As you lose fat, you can adjust downward. It's a dynamic process. And finally, this one's newer, but the science is incredibly compelling: urolithna. Let me pause on that last one because it's one of the most fascinating discoveries in the field of aging. Urolithna is what's called a postbiotic. It's produced in your gut when certain bacteria break down compounds called eligotannins, which are found in foods like pomegranates and walnuts. But here's the catch. Only about 30 to 40% of people have the right gut bacteria to make urolithna naturally. The rest of us, we eat the pomegranate, enjoy the taste, and get almost none of the benefit. That's where supplementation comes in. Why does urolithna matter so much? Because it directly enhances something called empathy. That's the process by which your cells clean out old damaged mitochondria and replace them with new, healthy ones. Think of mitochondria as the power plants inside your cells. They generate the energy you need for everything from contracting a muscle to burning fat to thinking clearly. But as we age, our mitochondria get sluggish. They accumulate damage. They become less efficient. And when your mitochondria aren't working well, your whole body slows down. You feel tired. You store more fat. You lose muscle more easily. Urethrin helps reverse that. It essentially tells your cells time to take out the trash and bring in fresh equipment. And the research randomized control trials in older adults shows that supplementing with urolithin A can improve muscle endurance, enhance strength, and support overall metabolic health. One of the most reputable sources is a patented product called Mop Pure from a company called Timeline Nutrition. The studies published in major journals are genuinely impressive. I'm not easily swayed by supplement data, but this one stands out, If you're curious, there's a discount code Thomas10 that can save you a bit if you want to explore it. But even if you don't supplement, just know this. Keeping your mitochondria healthy is one of the most powerful anti-aging strategies we have, and it directly supports your ability to lose fat and build muscle at the same time. Now, while nutrition and cellular health create the foundation, the real catalyst is what you do with your body. You can eat all the protein in the world and take every supplement on the shelf, but if you're not moving in the right way, you're not going to build muscle. And building muscle is non-negotiable if you want to change your body composition. The good news, you don't need to spend hours in the gym. You don't need fancy equipment. You just need consistency and intention. The true anti-aging exercise isn't cardio. It's resistance training. Here's why. When you lift weights or use resistance bands or even do body weight exercises, you create tiny tears in your muscle fibers. Your body then repairs those tears, and in the process, it makes the muscle a little bit stronger and a little bit bigger. This is how you build muscle, but it's not just about size or strength. Resistance training sends a powerful signal to your body. We need this muscle. Don't let it go. And in response, your body prioritizes preserving and building muscle even when you're in a calorie deficit and losing fat. Research shows that doing resistance training just 2 to 3 times per week, targeting all major muscle groups with somewhere between 10 to 20 sets per body part per week, is enough to see meaningful results. And here's the surprising part. Even very light resistance training can make a difference. There was a study where people on a calorie rest-restricted diet did minimal exercise, things like yoga and bodyweight movements just twice a week. The group that ate more protein and did that light resistance training lost more body fat and held onto their muscle, while the low-protein group lost nearly half their weight from muscle tissue. So, you don't need to train like an athlete. You just need to give your body a reason to keep the muscle it has. What does that look like in practice? Maybe it's 2 or 3 sessions a week where you do squats, push-ups, rows, and a few other basic movements. Maybe it's resistance bands at home. Maybe it's a class at your local community center. The key is progressive challenge, doing a little more over time. Whether that's more reps, more sets, or slightly more resistance, your muscles respond to challenge. Give them one, and they'll adapt. And there's one movement pattern that bridges longevity, fat loss, and brain health better than almost anything else. Walking. I know walking doesn't sound exciting. It's not high-tech. It doesn't make you sweat or breathe hard. But let me tell you why walking is one of the most underrated tools for fat loss and overall health, especially as we age. Walking is gentle, sustainable, and incredibly effective. And unlike intense cardio, it primarily burns fat for fuel. When you walk at a comfortable pace, your body taps into fat stores for energy. You're not depleting glycogen or stressing your joints. You're simply moving, and that movement adds up. But beyond the calories, walking does something else. It keeps your daily energy expenditure high without feeling like exercise. This is called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT for short. And NEAT can account for hundreds of extra calories burned each day. Not because you're grinding through a workout, but because you're living an active life. The research on walking and longevity is striking. Studies show that going from almost no daily steps to just 3,000 to 4,000 steps per day dramatically reduces your risk of dying from any cause. Bump that up to around 7,000 to 8,000 steps, and the benefits increase even more. There's a sweet spot somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 steps where you get diminishing returns. But the point is, even modest increases matter a lot. And here's the beauty of it. You can walk while listening to a podcast, talking on the phone, or just enjoying the fresh air. It's passive in the best sense. It doesn't demand willpower the way a hard workout does. It just fits. Now, does that mean walking replaces resistance training? Absolutely not. They serve different purposes. Resistance training builds and protects muscle. Walking supports fat loss, cardiovascular health, and metabolic flexibility. You need both. But if you're someone who's been sedentary, or if you're trying to lose fat without overloading your body, walking is your best friend. Aim for somewhere in the range of 7 to 10,000 steps most days. Track it with your phone or a simple pedometer. Giphy it a little. Set a goal and try to hit it. You'll be amazed at how much easier it becomes to manage your weight when movement is just part of your daily rhythm. So, movement and protein protect your body. But what protects your recovery? Sleep. If there's one thing that sabotages body recomposition more than anything else, it's poor sleep. And yet, so many of us treat sleep like it's optional, something we can sacrifice when life gets busy. But here's the hard truth. When you don't sleep well, your body can't build muscle. In fact, recent research has shown that just one night of poor sleep can reduce muscle protein synthesis, the process by which your muscles repair and grow by somewhere around 15 to 20%. One night. That's not chronic sleep deprivation. That's one bad night. And the suppression can last for several days afterward. Think about what that means. You're eating enough protein. You're lifting weights. You're doing everything right. But if you're not sleeping, your muscles simply can't respond. It's like planting seeds in dry soil and wondering why nothing grows. Sleep is the water. Without it, nothing else works. But sleep doesn't just affect muscle. It affects everything. When you're sleep deprived, your blood sugar rises, even if you haven't eaten a thing. Your body pumps out more cortisol, the stress hormone. Your insulin sensitivity drops, meaning your cells become less responsive to insulin, and your body starts storing more fat. And your willpower, forget it. When you're exhausted, you're far more likely to reach for quick energy, sugar, processed carbs, whatever is convenient. The whole system breaks down. So, if you're serious about losing fat and building muscle, you have to prioritize sleep. 7 to 8 hours consistently. It's not negotiable. Now, here's something practical. What do you do if you didn't sleep well? Maybe you had a rough night. You're tired. Your glucose is elevated. You feel off. Should you skip your workout? Surprisingly, no. But you should adjust what kind of workout you do. High-intensity interval training, sprinting, anything that really spikes your heart rate and taxes your nervous system, those are not great choices after poor sleep. They'll dig you deeper into a hole. But resistance training, that's actually one of the better things you can do. Lift moderately. Keep the intensity reasonable. Don't go for personal records. What you're doing is giving your muscles a signal to hold on while supporting recovery rather than adding more stress. Some research even suggests that physical activity can partially offset some of the metabolic disruption from sleep deprivation, especially when it comes to maintaining muscle protein synthesis. And here's a simple strategy I use myself. If I didn't sleep well, I keep my carbohydrate intake lower the next day. Why? Because my blood sugar is already elevated from the stress response. My insulin sensitivity is compromised. Adding a big carbohydrate load on top of that is like pouring gasoline on a fire. But if I keep carbs moderate and focus on protein and healthy fats, I give my body a chance to stabilize. It's an easy lever to pull and it works. You didn't earn fewer carbs because you're lazy. You're just working with your biology instead of against it. And that brings us to one of the most critical levers in recomposition: how your body manages blood sugar. Glucose and insulin control might sound technical, but they're at the heart of whether you lose fat or store it. Here's the simple version. When you eat, your blood sugar rises. Your pancreas releases insulin to shuttle that sugar into your cells for energy or storage. In a healthy system, this happens smoothly. Your cells are sensitive to insulin. Sugar gets cleared. Everything resets. But when insulin sensitivity is poor, often due to chronic stress, poor sleep, excess body fat, or a diet high in processed foods, your cells become resistant. insulin levels stay elevated. And here's the problem. Insulin is a storage hormone. When insulin is high, fat burning shuts down. Your body literally cannot access fat stores for fuel when insulin is elevated. That's why blood sugar control is so important for fat loss. If your glucose is constantly spiking and your insulin is constantly high, you're locked in storage mode. You can't burn what you've stored. Now, insulin isn't the enemy. It's essential. But chronically elevated insulin is a metabolic roadblock. And the good news is, you have more control over this than you might think. Eating enough protein at each meal helps stabilize blood sugar. Resistance training dramatically improves insulin sensitivity. Your muscles become better at pulling sugar out of your bloodstream without needing as much insulin. Walking after meals can lower glucose spikes. And as we've already discussed, managing sleep and stress keeps those background glucose levels in check. Here's a real-world example. There was a physician who shared that during her on-call shifts, stressful, sleepless nights, her blood sugar would spike even though she wasn't eating any differently. It was purely the stress response. Her body was dumping glucose into her bloodstream to prepare for a perceived threat. And that elevated glucose triggered insulin release, which in turn made fat loss nearly impossible during those periods. But once she recognized the pattern, she adjusted lower carbs on those days, prioritizing protein, getting back to good sleep as soon as possible, and her blood sugar normalized. Your body is sending you signals. You just have to learn to listen. Now, let's circle back to some of the nutrients that directly enhance both insulin sensitivity and muscle growth. We've already touched on omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D, but I want to go a little deeper because these two play a surprisingly direct role in the muscle-fat connection. Omega-3 seconds, specifically EPA and DHA from fish oil, do more than reduce inflammation. They actually help your muscles respond better to protein. There's evidence suggesting that omega-3 supplementation can enhance the muscle-building response to a meal, especially in older adults whose muscle protein synthesis tends to be blunted compared to younger people. Think of omega-3 seconds as priming the pump. They make your muscles more receptive to the protein you're eating. They also improve insulin sensitivity, which, as we just discussed, is crucial for fat loss. When your cells are more insulin sensitive, you need less insulin to manage blood sugar, and that means you spend more time in fat-burning mode. Vitamin D works in a similar way. Beyond supporting bone health, vitamin D receptors are embedded in your muscle tissue. Low vitamin D levels are associated with muscle weakness, poor physical performance, and difficulty building muscle. And here's where it gets interesting. If you're carrying excess body fat, your fat tissue actually sequesters vitamin D. It gets trapped in the fat cells and doesn't circulate in your blood where it's needed. So, if you're overweight and you check your vitamin D levels, they might come back low, even if you're spending time in the sun or taking a standard supplement. The solution? You may need higher doses, sometimes in the range of 3,000 to 5,000 international units daily, to get your blood levels up into the optimal range. As you lose fat, you can reassess and potentially lower the dose. It's a dynamic process. Your needs change as your body changes, and that's a good thing. It means the system is working. So, we've covered protein resistance training, walking, sleep, and targeted supplementation. But there are a couple of everyday allies that deserve special mention because they're simple, accessible, and backed by decades of research. I'm talking about whey, protein, and caffeine. Let's start with whey. Whey protein is one of the most studied and effective protein sources for building muscle. It's rich in leucine, the amino acid that most powerfully triggers muscle protein synthesis. It's quickly absorbed, making it ideal post-workout when your muscles are primed to rebuild. And it's incredibly satiating, meaning it keeps you full, which is a huge advantage when you're trying to lose fat. There's even research showing that people who include whey protein in their diet while cutting calories lose more fat, and preserve more muscle compared to those who get their protein from other sources. It's not that other proteins are bad. Whole foods like chicken, fish, eggs, and legumes are excellent, but whey has a unique profile that makes it especially effective for body recomposition. Now, there are two main types of whey: isolate and concentrate. Isolate is more refined. It's almost pure protein with very little fat or lactose. If you want the cleanest, simplest protein source, isolate is a great choice. But concentrate has something isolate doesn't: immunoglobulins like lactoferrin and alpha-lactobumin. These compounds have immune-modulating and anti-inflammatory properties. They support gut health. And there's emerging evidence that they might even enhance recovery. For years, I defaulted to isolate because I thought it was better. But as I've taken a more holistic view, thinking about protein not just as isolated amino acids, but as part of a complete food matrix, I've come to appreciate concentrate. Yes, it has a little more fat and lactose, which can cause digestive discomfort for some people initially. But if you can tolerate it, you're getting benefits beyond just the protein. It's a small thing, but small things add up. And then there's caffeine. Caffeine is probably the most studied performance-enhancing compound we have. It increases your metabolic rate. It mobilizes fat from your fat cells so it can be burned for energy. It improves focus and motivation, which makes it easier to stick to your workout. And there's even some intriguing evidence suggesting caffeine might support muscle growth by enhancing muscle contraction and reducing perceived effort during exercise. A cup of black coffee in the morning isn't just a ritual. It's a legitimate fat loss tool. But here's a caveat. If you're taking creatine, you might want to separate it from your caffeine by at least an hour. Recent research suggests that caffeine and creatine may compete for the same cellular transporters, meaning taking them together could reduce how much creatine actually gets into your muscles. So, have your coffee, wait a bit. Then take your creatine, or vice versa. Just don't mix them in the same shake. So when you bring all these together, protein, movement, mitochondria, sleep, and recovery, you're not just changing your body, you're reprogramming your biology. Let me pull all of this into one cohesive framework, because I know we've covered a lot of ground. Body recomposition, losing fat while building muscle, isn't about one magic trick. It's about creating a system where every element supports the others. Think of it like a web. Each strand matters. Pull on one, and the whole structure responds. Here's what that system looks like in practice. First, you eat more quality protein. Not just more food, more protein. Aim for 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, spread across your meals. This gives your muscles the raw materials they need to repair and grow, especially when you're in a calorie deficit. Second, you strength train 2 to 3 times per week. You don't need to spend hours in the gym. You don't need heavy weights, you just need to challenge your muscles consistently. Bodyweight exercises, resistance bands, light dumbbells, whatever you have access to, use it. 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week is a good target. That might sound like a lot, but it's really just a few exercises per session. Squats, push-ups, rows, lunges, the basics work. Third, you walk daily. Aim for 7 to 10,000 steps most days. This isn't formal exercise. It's just part of living an active life. Walk after meals. Walk while you talk on the phone. Walk to the store instead of driving. Every step counts, and it all adds up to better fat loss, better cardiovascular health, and better metabolic flexibility. Fourth, you sleep 7 to 8 hours every night. This is when your body does the real work of rebuilding muscle, regulating hormones, and managing blood sugar. If you're not sleeping, nothing else will work as well as it should. Protect your sleep like it's medicine, because it is. Fifth, you support your mitochondria and insulin sensitivity through targeted supplementation. Creatine for muscle energy and strength. Omega-3 seconds for inflammation and insulin sensitivity. vitamin D for muscle function and overall health. And if you want to go a step further, urolithin A to support mitochondrial renewal and long-term cellular health. These aren't magic pills, but they're evidence-based tools that fill in the gaps and give your body the support it needs to thrive. And finally, and this might be the most important part, you shift your mindset. You're not dieting. You're not restricting. You're not trying to shrink yourself into some arbitrary version of healthy. You're rebuilding your cells. You're restoring your metabolic machinery. You're giving your body the message that it's worth investing in. This isn't about vanity. It's about vitality. It's about staying strong enough to play with your grandchildren, independent enough to live on your own terms, and resilient enough to handle whatever life throws at you. And the beauty of this approach is it doesn't just make you look younger, it literally helps you age slower. Here's why. When you maintain muscle mass, you protect your metabolic rate. You keep your bones strong. You preserve your balance and coordination. When you regulate your glucose and improve insulin sensitivity, you reduce your risk of diabetes, heart disease, and dementia. When you support your mitochondria, you give every cell in your body the energy it needs to function properly. And when you do all of this together, you're not just preventing decline. You're actively promoting regeneration. Your body has an incredible capacity to heal and adapt even late in life. You just have to give it the right inputs. I've seen people in their 70s and 80s completely transform their bodies and their health by following these principles. They didn't do anything extreme. They didn't starve themselves. They didn't spend hours in the gym. They just committed to doing the basics consistently. More protein, regular resistance training, daily movement, good sleep, smart supplementation. And within months, they were stronger, leaner, more energetic, and more confident than they'd been in decades. That's the power of body recomposition. It's not a quick fix. It's a sustainable science-based approach to taking control of your health and your aging trajectory. So, if this conversation helps shift how you think about health, take a moment to support the channel. Hit like, share this video with someone who's trying to get stronger and leaner, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. I read your comments personally, so tell me, what's one thing you'll start doing today to rebuild your body from the inside out? Maybe it's adding more protein to your breakfast. Maybe it's committing to a short walk every evening. Maybe it's finally prioritizing 7 hours of sleep. Whatever it is, share it below. Let's build a community of people who are aging, not just gracefully but powerfully. Thank you for listening. Now go take action.